Overclockersclub. I'm back again with another cool case from VIVO. If you don't know anything about VIVO, they've got quite an impressive range of monitor mounts and stands, computer carts, things of that nature. So check out their website and look at all the cool stuff they have. Now you may not know VIVO as being a case manufacturer, but I reviewed the V07 and the V08 last year. You can check out the links on the Overclockersclub website. But this is the V10G. This comes in around the $50 price point, and it used to be when you would spend money on a case, $50, really you didn't get much of a case. You had to spend closer to $75 or $100 to really get something that was decent. But I think we're going to see that's a different story now. And again, VIVO may not be as well known for cases as, say, Corsair, Thermaltake, Cooler Master, but I think they're starting to make a name for themselves. So now I got it out of the box. I reached inside and pulled out the instruction manual. And one thing I've noticed about VIVO is they do have a very detailed instruction manual, nice pictures, arrows pointing to things, nice descriptions, color pictures. They really go out of their way to put together a very comprehensive, very nice instruction manual. So now that we got the case out of the box, it's a very small case. It is a mid-tower. When you get a case this small, you do run into limitations for liquid cooling. You're not going to get any large radiators in here, anything like that. In fact, really the only place that you have for any liquid cooling, if you wanted to put a rear 120 millimeter radiator, that's about it. You do not have a rear fan. It can take either an 80 or 120 millimeters, so that is not included. But in the front, you do have 3 120 millimeter fans. We'll get this front cover popped off where you can see them, but it does come with those 3 fans to help pull air in from the front of the case and push it out the back. Nice feature here, we do have a side glass, and it has a layer, I'll have to peel this off here in a moment, a layer of protective plastic. So I'll peel that off here in a moment, and there's also a layer of plastic on the front. I'll get that off also. But if you look at the bottom of the case, there are no vents at the bottom, so really the airflow path through the case is in from the front and right out the back. We don't have any venting on top either. A case this size, surprisingly, you can get a full-size ATX motherboard in here, or a mini ITX, or a micro ATX. But it's kind of remarkable that you can get a full-size ATX in a case this small. So if you do have a larger build, but you don't have a lot of room for it, this would be a good case for that. So let me not bore you with removing the plastic here. I'll get that off, and then we'll start to take a look at the inside. All right, I saved you the horror of having to watch me peel all the plastic off of the glass. You're welcome. First thing I want to point out here, I popped the front off here. It is a little stiff just because it's brand new, and this is not something that you're going to be really opening and closing that often. But anyway, this front I/O panel, you'll notice we don't have any optical drive bays, which is the current trend as optical drives are slowly being phased out. Fewer and fewer cases have that, but we do have 3 120 millimeter front fans. So those will pull the air in from the front vents here, and from the bottom there's a little opening, and push it through the case. Now there's a little bit of a pattern. I don't know how well you can see it here, but it gives a really nice lighting effect that we'll see when we get the case powered up. So we'll go ahead and pop this back on. And the other thing I'll talk about here on the front, our I/O panel, everything is across the very front. So we have our power button, reset button here. On the other side, we've got a single USB 3.0 port, and we have 2 USB 2.0 ports, microphone, headphone jack, and then we have our hard drive activity light, power light, and then a little reset button right there next to the power button. Now looking at this side, again, remember we have a front smoked glass panel, and then we have the side glass panel here. This is a gray smoked glass. Again, for a $50 plus or minus a few dollars price point, it's hard to find a case that has front and side glass and the LED front fans. So that's a really nice deal. Looking at the back, we do have a solid metal panel. We'll top that off. 2 little screws here. And then when we look at the chassis, even though we don't have optical drives, we do have what look like our leftover mounts for maybe from a previous case design or previous chassis. They just left these in there. So even though it looks like you could put optical drives in there, you really can't. But On the front side here, we do have a couple places for some solid state drives if you want to mount those. And then in the bottom here, this is where you would put 2 regular 3.5-inch drives. So you have room for up to 4 hard drives. Along the back here, motherboard tray, nice opening there to get to the back of your motherboard. We have an opening here again to get your case wiring in and out if you need to. We have our Molex connectors here, and then your fan connectors. And on the top, again, that's solid, so we don't have any venting, and we don't have any venting on the bottom. So all of your airflow really is going to be pulled in from the front and pushed out the back of the case. Now we have 7 slots here, so we can put a full-size ATX like I mentioned earlier. And then we have space here. We actually have mounts for an 80mm fan, or you can put a 120mm fan. Now, fan is not included, so you will have to supply your own there. And there's a little hardware bag. We've got a slot cover, we've got a system speaker, some motherboard screws, and a couple extra standoffs here depending upon the configuration of the motherboard you're using. So, I'll get this put back together here. We'll get the motherboard in here, the cooler and the graphics card, all that stuff. We'll get it fired up and we'll do some thermal testing and see how well this little case handles the heat. So, now I have the case powered up. I really like the way the LED fans, the blue LED fans, shine through that front panel. That's a very nice effect. I do like that. Now we look at the side here. Again, this is a very small case. The trade-off here is we don't have a lot of room for cable management, so if you have a modular power supply, that would work better. This particular power supply that I'm using is not, so I really have to stuff cables in there. Also, my Noctua D14 will not fit in here. It sticks up too high, so I had to go with a Dark Rock TF from Be Quiet. This here gives me the clearance that I need. We should be all right performance-wise from a thermal standpoint, but we'll check that here in just a little bit. Again, this case, not a lot of room, not a lot of space to work, but again, the trade-off is you can get a full-size ATX motherboard in a very small case if you do need that sort of a setup. So we'll go ahead and get some thermal testing done here in just a moment. So now we'll take a little bit of thermal imaging here with the camera. On top we don't have any vents, so I really don't expect to see too much there. A little warmer toward the back, which is where the power supply is on this case. So that's not too much of a surprise. We come around to the front. Everything looks pretty cool. Come around to the side here. Of course, we do get some reflection off of the glass. And then we take a look at the back. Of course, there's a power supply at the top. If we focus in there, we're getting close to 40 degrees C on the power supply at idle. And then we come down here to the main exhaust. And this is real close to the CPU cooler, so I would expect this is where we'll see some heat. So you can see we're around 29, 30-ish, 32 degrees. And then the back of the graphics card, again at idle. It's not too bad. And then the bottom of the case, there's not much going on. So let's put some heat to it. So now we have the overclock rolling here, and again, I would expect most of the heat to be concentrated up towards the top, which is where the power supply is. And that's about what it looks like if we look at the side of the case. And you can see it's cooler around front where the intake fans are. Again, there's the glass that reflects a little. And we can see a little more heat here on the glass. Again, it does reflect some. And then if we look at the top, we will probably see a little more warmth toward the back of the case where the power supply is. And then we'll come around the back. And of course, up here at the power supply, we do see a little more warmth up there. And then we look at the main exhaust vent here. And again, we're close to 40 degrees there if we get right inside where the CPU cooler is. Down here on the graphics card, of course, there's nothing really going on there. And then the bottom of the case, again, everything's pretty cool. So that's what it looks like here. So we got our thermal testing all done. Things were about where I expected. A little warmer than you will see on a larger case, but that's to be expected with a smaller case like this. The V10G from VIVO here is the latest in their case lineup. What do I like about this case? First of all, we have the 3 front 120mm blue LED fans. I really like what they've done with that pattern that the blue lights peek through there. Really nice touch, along with the front glass and the side glass. So for $50, you're getting a pretty nice case here, and you can build a full-size system in here with a full-size ATX motherboard. That's hard to do in a small case. And surprisingly, the cable management was not bad at all. I've had larger cases that were more of a struggle than this one. Now, with a case this size, you do have to use more of a shallow cooler. This Be Quiet top flow cooler here is just perfect in this case. My D14 Noctua cooler just did not want to fit. The airflow through the case seemed to be adequate. We do have room here for another 120mm rear fan if you want to get just a little more airflow. But for $50, I think this case really hits the mark. So, this is Chris with Overclockers Club, and thanks for watching.